Hi, Wei. And hi, everyone. This is the Ignoramus's Guide to Surviving Humanity. And this is our first video / podcast together. I'm Ileana Chan, and this is
Wei Chan. No relation.
No relation. Although I did think we were cousins for most of my childhood.
Yeah.
So on this first podcast / video, we have decided to discuss the new-ish trailer for Edge of the World. A historical, what would you call it? Romance adventure film about Sarawak?
An abomination, really. I mean, I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen the trailer, and it's just, we know where this goes.
Yes, we decided to choose to do this trailer for our first video because we're both sort of from Sarawak, and this podcast is called The Ignoramus's Guide to Surviving Humanity, and this trailer sort of showcases two huge areas of ignorance. One, the Western view of Sarawak or Southeast Asian countries in general, and the filmmakers, I think, are very much in that ignoramus view, I think, and also our own, my own ignorance. I won't speak for you, Wei, but I have a lot of ignorance about Sarawak history as well. So we kind of wanted to explore both things.
Yeah, same. I mean, I have not very much knowledge about Sarawak. I just did a bit of a crash course for this one, but I do have a lot of experience watching Hollywood films about Asia.
Yes, and you're Asian.
And I'm Asian, yeah.
You have the lived experience of being Asian.
Exactly. And I have a lived experience, and I have a valid emotional reaction to this trailer.
Yes.
But before we play the trailer, actually, you were saying even the name of the film.
Yes,
Edge of the World.
Why is it Edge of the World when Malaysia's on the equator? Really? But that's so typical of colonial powers to be they're the center of the universe, and Malaysia on the equator.
It's on the edge, the edge of the world. The edge of the world, according to British people in 2021, apparently.
Well,
I mean,
But the thing that we're even gonna explore is this from British people? Where is this movie coming from? Why is it so offensive? And yet in 2021, where does it come from? So anyway, should we just watch the trailer and then
let's watch it? Let's watch this train wreck.
I can only hope to make some great discovery here that will bring credit to my family's name. There you have it. Pirates.
Assalamu alaikum. Based on a true story.
Okay, based on a true story. Okay, well.
And pirates.
Which true story? Yeah, and pirates. Yeah. Okay, what do we think of that?
I mean, there's so many things. I actually think that the ironic thing about the beginning was that he wishes he could discover something to be a credit to his family, is actually maybe the most truthful thing in the trailer, in that this whole thing was about his own sense of grandiose. He had sort of I think we did a little bit more research on him, and he's kind of well known as being someone that was just had a lot of delusions of grandeur about what he could discover, and be a great man in British society, because he's a very privileged guy. He's from a wealthy family. So
this is also I mean, the person they're talking about, Sir James Brooke, basically. Sir James Brooke is basically the main character in this movie, and he is someone from a colonial dynasty which ruled East Malaysia for 100 or so years, 100-ish years or something like that.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So that's our Rajah Brooke. that is describing this exploration of the jungle. And then, so in the trailer already, you've kind of got this weird thing of this guy, this white guy. They're kind of dramatizing it by showing that he's quite tortured, and he's there to discover something, probably himself as well. That's what I'm getting from the trailer.
He's
It's
super
gonna be
brooding as well.
self-discovery. Yeah, like they're
He's
trying
super
to give him
brooding,
depth.
and he's played by Jonathan Rhys-Meyers. Like, yeah, very
He's
like
super.
they've made him really good looking.
Yeah, he's like full of angst, Jonathan recently. So it's like, but ironically, like the reports or the writing about the real Rajah Brooke he was more like a Boris Johnson type of figure, kind of like a foolish buffoon that was really into press and prestige and was a bit of an egomaniac, but was also just someone that failed upwards constantly. It's not really a tortured soul, more like a untortured, like
buffoon.
Yeah, that just caused destruction where he went. Like that's at least what we've sort of like discovered from some research around him. But let's see what else this trailer does. Oh wait, sorry. Did you also want to say? Was anything else you wanted to say? Because the other thing that really is a pet peeve of mine is pirates. Like,
yeah,
British colonialism talks about natives who are just trying to maybe protect their own property or land or people as pirates, which makes no sense. So that's the other thing that they really slipped in there in the first minute.
He had a real habit of characterizing anyone who opposed him as a pirate, and he would report back to the UK and say that he was suppressing, pirate rebellions or pirate whatever this or that. So it was, I mean, a lot of the history has just been completely sort of written in favor of him.
Yep.
Behalf of England. Might I be allowed to go upriver?
I mean, that's already another part. So we could stop there. Like when the trailer sort of suggests that he came on behalf of England, which he didn't.
He didn't. No, he was from he was born in or brought up in India as like obviously like a highborn British person in colonial India or whatever. He was extremely privileged, and he managed to get hold of a huge military boat or something like that, just like by virtue of like him being a privileged person.
Just being rich, basically. He bought a naval boat, and the naval boats are sort of honorarily part of the Navy, but not really. So he was really there for his own self-interests, but it was kind of I guess the idea was that the Sultan of Brunei also thought that he was there on behalf of the British Empire, but he wasn't.
Yeah, which is why he basically managed to get so many like concessions from the Sultan of Brunei, isn't it? So just because the Sultan of Brunei thought that he represented the UK, and the UK had huge military and naval might in India and Asia, like they would just back down on a lot of things.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, actually, I think the real life history is more fascinating. But let's continue. We're 30 seconds in. Let's see what else.
We're just stopping at every scene because like literally I'm just like rolling my eyes at every single scene here. It's crazy.
We are on a voyage of discovery, not conquest. Prince Makota.
You will lend us your guns and bring them upriver.
Fire!
These rebels are pirates. Makota lied to me.
Stop!
Okay, I have to stop it there. This is literally a white savior scene. Like literally, like one Asian person had a sword in the air and was gonna chop another like poor Asian person, like a little like village women or something like that, and they're all dirty, and of course all the English actors are just like extremely handsome people, and they're all well groomed, and all of the Asian actors are just like just made to look like really regular people. The lighting is of course all lit for the white actors here, and you have Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, who's Irish, by the way, like not English, so
he's forgotten his
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what feelings he's going to have about playing an English colonialist in such a favorable light. But I mean, it's money, right? Yeah, basically saving a village from an evil Asian person. So I mean, yeah, this is Avatar. This is Last of the Mohicans. This is Tokyo Drift, this is The Wolverine, this is every Orientalist fantasy ever.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, this is a more superficial thing to say, but I think it's hilarious that they are dressed in like jackets and like so many layers. They would be sweltering and like dripping with sweat in this humid, and but yet the way that it, because he's in full regalia, and then the little like mother and children like in the villages, they were like half naked, kind of cowering, but actually they're just dressed more appropriately. But it kind of looks like they're here to save them, and the truth is, in real life they're probably ready to pass out because of the humidity.
Maybe in real life they were just like kind of a hot mess, like on the floor, like begging for water or something like that.
Well, actually, the that podcast that we listened to in
it was so great, wasn't it? Yeah, Behind the Bastards.
Yeah, it was really hilarious. It's sort of an examination of that book, White Rajah, which you have, right?
Which I have.
That book. Yes. It's like the only, unfortunately, it's the only book I know of. We will get more experts in, but that's the only book I know of. But he basically said that at some point James Brooke decided to not wear shoes, and then his like, I think when he first arrived, for some reason he decided not to wear shoes, and then his feet got infected. So this is not
the reason he didn't want to wear shoes is that he wanted to tread on the land that would be his, or something like that.
Oh wow.
Something very Rudyard Kipling. And interestingly, James Brooks was a major hero to Rudyard Kipling, and kind of like his character inspired, or how he was portrayed basically inspired, is it The Man Who Would Be King or something like that? And it's interesting that you talk about how he was a buffoon and kind of the Boris Johnson of colonialists, because Boris Johnson loves Rudyard Kipling, like is always quoting him and shit like that. So
yeah, and I mean, I think there are definite parallels, because it's like extreme privilege, that ability to fail upwards, be kind of lazy in like terms of school and other things like that, but yet have a major success because of your privilege, and then also have this very savvy way of portraying yourself, like somehow getting away with it, like somehow having great press, being able to do the publicity of yourself. I mean, I find them, with Donald Trump and stuff, like they do have, like James Brooke was quite savvy in the way that he manipulated different factions. So he wasn't a complete idiot or anything.
I don't know. I didn't take that away from it, actually. What I take away from it is that it's not necessarily like a way of manipulating your own story or telling your own story that they learn, but or that they do consciously, but that the way they see the world is in itself manipulative, and they always see themselves as to themselves they downplay everything bad they do, and to themselves they attribute every single success that they have not to their privilege, not to their privilege, but to their individual skill, when in fact it's like completely the opposite. So of course of course, if you see the world that way, the way that you're going to report yourself is also going to be favorable and laundered.
I mean, I guess that's a really good point. It's like, it's not so much that they're so intelligent in terms of manipulation. It's just that because of the world we live in, which is a white supremacy type of world, they can get away with that because people are more likely to believe them when they say, oh, like, for example, James Brooks is basically saying, oh, I'm going to this jungle and I'm saving these natives because I'm English. And the rest of the world immediately goes, oh, wow, you're doing a great thing. Versus if you had a different frame that wasn't a white supremacy or British Empire frame, you wouldn't think that way. You would question, I guess. And I mean, I also I feel like I shouldn't talk about British Empire in terms of, they're almost worse than white supremacy, right? Because they're more specific. They're more like, it's a smaller group. Like white supremacy actually includes more people than what we're talking about. So, but okay, let's see what else we can.
It's amazing. We're only like 53 seconds into this and everything is making me groan.
Yay.
I finally found a home.
Wait, sorry, can we just stop there? Sorry, that was just 1 second. But this is another part that made me like just scream because like, of course, like the only other good looking person in the movie is going to be an Asian woman that he is going to save in some way. And of course she had her veil over her mouth in that way and was like flirting with her eyes, you know, like all mystical and like oriental and stuff. So they love a good trope.
Yeah, and I actually don't know who this person is historically. I think it's just a completely made up character. Or is it like the Sultan? We don't know. I don't think we know from this trailer. But
No,
it's like, even so the whole thing is weird because she's not a native of Sarawak. They didn't have veils at that time, probably.
Yeah.
Wow.
Should we also take this opportunity to let's move on for a second. Like talk about the romantic aspect. Is there another romance scene?
Yeah, I think they do play that up.
Yeah.
And there'll be no more taking of slaves.
Englishman, you do not rule here. To have peace, we must make war.
This pretending to be king is...
Okay. So
too many things in that.
There's so many things.
Seconds.
To have peace, we must have war.
This
guy's trying to be like Jon Snow. What is this Jon Snow impression all about? I mean, this is not Game of... Is there like now a default go-to dramatic dark reboot voice that actors adopt? You know, it's kind of like, to have peace, we must have war.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things wrong with that. Just that part. I guess I think that it does kind of play up this idea that this is a fantasy jungle, even though it's based on a true story. That one part. But the other part, just like the continual imperialistic idea that war is a way to peace is just
so noble, aren't they? They're just so noble. All they want is peace for the region. That's why the British were in Malaysia. All they wanted was just the best for the locals.
Oh my gosh, your head completely disappeared. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
It disturbed me greatly. So
okay. Well, yeah, all they want is just peace for the locals. I mean, they're just so benevolent. I love it.
Yes.
Definitely not war-loving people. Definitely not. They only fight when they have to. That's the British.
They will kill you all first because you're not peaceful enough, and then once you're all dead, you know, there's going to be peace. So, yeah.
I mean, this big number on the screen, 2021, is really just like jumping out at me and just mocking me, and I'm just thinking, how is this possible in 2021?
Yeah, and it's also really interesting because the person in that I'm not sure, like the person that's like, you think you're a white, the guy who's like, you think you're, did he say a British can rule us, or I already missed that part, you know, that we were just showing. I'm just wondering who that person is, because one, he's not a native, he's not dressed like one of the natives. He's dressed in, and really like the people that we know, like Rentap, and people like, I think Rentap's really the most famous one, who was like a considered a pirate, of course, by the British Empire or whatever, but really is one of our Sarawakian heroes right now, who, when we look back at history, one of the few people who tried to fight back. So yeah, I wonder, is that guy in that trailer supposed to be him? Because I don't think it's a good rendering. But anyway.
I don't know. Wait, I'm just gonna. Okay, can we talk about this for a second? So, so the romance plot, right? Okay, I know you need a romance plot. I know every time Hollywood makes a movie about Asia, or like a white person makes a movie about Asia, it has to be about a romance between you know, like some white hero and an Asian woman. Okay, and obviously they're playing into this here. Let's be real for a second. James Brooke looks nothing like Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, this kind of paragon of like white masculinity. And second of all,
I thought he looked like Colin Firth.
He looks more like Colin Firth. Yeah, he's kind of got like very like minimal lips and kind of like a puffier face. Yeah. And second of all, it's very, very obvious that that Rajah James Brooke was gay and into teenage males.
We don't know that for sure, right? That's sort of controversial.
No, I think it's not. I mean, it says so in his journals. He wrote. Did you see the bit about the pudding? The poem about the pudding, where he like had 12 boys in his bed, or something like that. So he writes copious amounts of like love letters about various teenage boys of like English and of Asian ethnicity. So I mean, he was one of the first sexpats in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, you probably imagine that you have to like rule entire country, colonize entire country, basically because you're a sexpat. I mean, that's basically his whole thing. It's so extreme. But yeah, okay, so you're right in that I'm quite convinced as well. Like there's certain other things that would suggest that he is is most probably a pedophile, but at least a gay person.
He was at least gay, who was attracted to sort of boys between the age of 13 and 17. So that's, by today's standards, that's kind of,
he's a pedophile.
That's pedophile, and probably by like old, like 18th century standards, he's probably a pedophile as well. Like, I mean, 13 or like, I think by those standards. But yeah, I mean, it obviously they could have made the character gay, like they didn't. It's kind of just so ironic that they had to frame this movie in this kind of white savior romance kind of Asian exoticized woman.
Yeah, because the original story,
especially as he is gay.
Yeah, it would have been so much more interesting if they showed the real person, because he was much more complex and probably not noble at all, probably some sort of narcissist sociopath. But also, yeah, it is interesting that, I mean, he was also dealing with things like he had to fake a groin injury perhaps for 5 years,
right, to
sort of get away with, at that time, you know, being gay was illegal, I think, in the UK, in Great Britain. So, you know, stuff like that's a more interesting film. Like the things that he had to actually go through, plus the fact that he was kind of a abhorrent person and yet maybe a victim as well. Like, you know, like that would have been a way more interesting film. But no, we have the white savior who has, I guess this is an Indonesian actress.
I think she's from Hong Kong, actually.
I know that there's two. There's one Indonesian and there's one from Hong Kong. So I don't know which one. I mean, is this racist of me? I don't know which one is which. I can't tell. But I can look that up for sure.
Yeah.
Should we continue?
Oh God. I don't know if I can.
King is too much. We don't belong here.
I've been living in a fantasy of my own making.
This is war!
This is Sparta. This is war.
You can't run from this, James.
I must love the jungle, the beauty, and the blood.
I mean, I'm also ambivalent about the jungle because of the humidity and the mosquitoes, but no, I don't share quite as ambivalent. The beauty and the blood. Maybe if we stop killing people, there would be more blood.
Okay.
That was charming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there is we're sort of looking at this in terms of like, why was this made? I mean, I think and who was it made by, you know, because Sarawak is a kind of a smaller Malaysia is kind of a smaller country, maybe in the Western zeitgeist or whatever. So yeah, this is maybe our second film based. Like the first one, what was it? It had Ning Nolte in it, and there was also cannibalism. Like, I think he was like hung over a pot or something by our natives. So this one, is this better though? Because that one was like, I think made in the 80s. And this is like 2021, and it seems to be sort of recycling some of the same tropes. Like if you look at the Oriental mysticism, just the idea of like natives being supernatural and like scary, and like a dead body in the jungle, like cut up, like cannibalism and all sorts of things. So it's I think particularly bad because this was funded. I looked it up on Wikipedia, which granted, Wikipedia is not the most credible news source, but Wikipedia is also something that a publicist for this movie would have filled out for this movie. So I think that it's the type of like information that they would want out there. And so this movie was partly funded by the Sarawak Tourism Board and the Malaysian Film Incentive something. So no, this is that's why it's Edge of the World and not the Edge of the World.
This one.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, so Michael Houseman, who directed it, is I guess an American director who seems to not have done that many movies in the US, but he did, I think, a movie in Indonesia a few years ago, and you know, but if you scroll down, we can kind of see that like who's involved in the movie. I think in the production. There you go.
Oh yeah. It's not very much. Maybe it's on the IMDb.
Oh, so it's the Sarawak Tourism Board.
Yeah.
And the Brooke Heritage Trust was a technical advisor. So that's kind of interesting because I would love to have a conversation with one of the Brooke Heritage Trust people, because they're descendants not of James Brooks, because as we said, he
didn't have direct descendants. So he just to recap, he never had children and never showed an interest in women, and had kind of spread the idea that he was shot in the groin for 5 years, and that was kind of his sort of reason for not reproducing, which is
And
great.
not getting married. Which is what?
Which is great.
Yeah, some people don't need to reproduce. However,
Yeah.
he had nephews. And so his nephews were the, I think first it was John Brooke, who then got removed after 2 years, who took over were his successors. And then it was Charles Brooke. So Charles Brooke is probably the one where the descendants of are the ones that have this Brooke Heritage Trust.
Charles Brooke was not one of his blood relatives. He was one of the boys that that accompanied him from
Really?
England.
I thought he was so he wasn't the nephew. No, he wasn't one of the nephews.
He wasn't a real nephew. He was sort of an adopted son. Yeah.
So actually, the Brooke Heritage Trust descendants are not even of James Brooke.
No. So Charles Brooke changed his name to Brooke later, so in order to inherit the kingdom, or whatever you would want to call it.
Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at the Brooke Trust website, the trustees are, the grandson of, like it says here, Jason Brooke, the grandson of Anthony Walter Darrell Brooke, the last Rajah Muda of Sarawak. So it wasn't, they're not necessarily descendants from James.
I don't think so. Yeah, from what I could tell, I think I think it sounded more like he had favorites, or he had a group of favorites, and he kind of wanted to pass his legacy on to them.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of interesting too. So again, it's just like the real story is so much more interesting.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, but I mean, that I think the thing is like once you know that sort of James Brooke was gay, or probably gay, or definitely gay, whatever you want to say, it becomes quite difficult to sort of to look into history properly, because a lot of things are going to be hidden, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because of the times. So and it's doubtful that the Brooke Heritage Trust would be acknowledging of any of that. So it puts the whole thing in a kind of new light.
Yeah, it does. It puts it in a new light. It makes the original story much more interesting, the true story much more interesting. And also I think what's interesting about that too is when we were thinking that when the movie actually comes out, we would watch the whole movie and then do a not a shot by shot like this, but just like do our thoughts about it, and then open up and have a wider conversation to to actual Sarawakians as well. So it would be interesting to talk to them and to see, I mean, we're also Sarawakians, but people who live there, who grew up there.
People who live there, yeah.
And also were completely educated in that system, what they think about Rajah Brooke, and what the, whether or not, what do they think about him being gay? Because I have a feeling it doesn't come up.
No, for sure. And so when I went to school in Sarawak briefly, I was definitely under a British education system. So I went to lodge school. You went to lodge school as well. That was all a British kind of curriculum, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've been completely educated in the British system, just like international British schools and everything. So we really didn't learn anything about Malaysian history. I don't know if you did at that time. I think I had one lesson of Malay a week.
Yeah. The main thing I remember about James Brooke is, like more kind of like when you go to a tourist site or something like that in Kuching, they would talk about the White Rajah, James Brooke, Rajah Brooke, and stuff like that. And also, your dad was in a play.
Oh yeah.
And that was one. Do you not remember that?
Yeah, no, but I don't remember.
Your dad played. So your dad, for people who don't know, it's like quite an outspoken and prominent figure.
He
I
has a
guess.
newspaper column, actually.
Yeah, he likes to
Still,
speak.
I mean, he just revived it. So he has a newspaper column in the Borneo Post, I think. I mean, he used to be the
Amazing.
Borneo Post. I think it is still the Borneo Post.
And he's very like social on the Sarawak social scene as well, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I
Can we
remember
stop
seeing a play.
sharing
Yeah.
Can we stop sharing?
Let's
screen
stop sharing the screen.
so that I can hear you.
Yeah.
So you remember were you in the play, or was your brother? Was he in the play?
No, we weren't in the play. Your dad was in the play, and it was in the Hilton Hotel. Yeah.
Okay, so that was.
You're gonna cut that out.
No, because
yeah.
we're gonna actually try to talk to my dad about
Yeah.
it. Like he's in Sarawak. He was born there, and he's been living there since 1989, when we all moved back. So I really want to hear he's also kind of a history buff, so he has his own perspective on Sarawak history. I wonder if he's heard of he's never mentioned James Brooke's sexual orientation, which I wonder why, like whether or not his sources have talked about it at all. So, but he did talk about how basically this idea of the Civil War was just really a workers' rights rebellion rather than so it's really disturbing me that your head is being eaten by
I'm
that.
sorry. Yeah.
Just because. But yeah. So we're gonna open up that conversation and have that conversation with Sarakins, and that I think that will be really interesting and helpful too, because I want to know more about how this what Malaysians think about it. Why, and also in terms of this sort of going back to the Sarawak Tourism Board, which was one of the funders of this, is just the idea that the Sarawak Tourism Board is using Sarawakian money, like basically it's the Sarawak money, right? To fund something that's essentially demonizing their own people. And why is that something that's going to be like sort of unremarked upon, like in Malaysia, perhaps? Like, I don't know, maybe there will be discussion around that, but also just thinking about what can the Sarawak Tourism Board use their funds for? Like it can use their funds for actual Sarawakians that want to make films about their experience. It doesn't have to be, this huge Hollywood sort of thing, but like a genuine exploration of the Sarawakian experiences would be so much more beneficial.
Yeah, I can just imagine the conversation and the pitch, but I'm sure, like, I don't, I'm just completely speculating here, but I guess like some kind of filmmaker with credentials in Hollywood and abroad. So this guy, Michael Houseman, is American but lives in Australia, has worked in Indonesia as well, I believe. So that's the director. But I don't know, but I can imagine if some Hollywood types just approached the Sarawak Tourism Board, it's a very small town like Kuching. I'm sure they would have just been really flattered and just
I mean, I have a feeling from, this is my speculation, that it was probably a descendant, one of the not descendants of, so someone to do with the Brooke Institute, probably wanting to write something about their incredible like family history, like whether or not they're direct descendants or not, it's like their family law. And so they probably had like a story that they wanted to sell. And then Rob Allen, the writer of it, probably knows this person, or they work together or something like that. And then I think they found these other producers. And when I talked to your dad actually about it, he was saying that the Brooke Institute, they are known in Sarawak, like they do research, or they're known to do research, to be interested in that culture. So they've definitely, I think, been to Sarawak. So it's like, I would love to have a conversation with one of them and be like, how did your research
Yeah.
and apparent care for history
Hmm.
turn into this trailer? Because say the film is like way better than this trailer, which is very unlikely, but like there are just
Yeah.
things in this trailer already that we know that the film is gonna have.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? You just don't think, like, do you think on some level they felt somewhat like aggrieved at how badly it turned out, or am I giving them too much benefit of doubt?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't really know anything about them. But I mean, I know what Sarawak's kind of like, and I know what the like colonial influence is kind of like, and it's kind of like a question that you answer yourself. You know, if you're, as you're saying it, you're like, why would the Brooke Institute want to collaborate on a film which glorified James Brooke, you know, and covered up his homosexuality and his sex with teenagers and young boys, and yeah, why would they want to do that and depict James Brooke as a benevolent, hot, hyper masculine, you know, brooding, dark, very sympathetic character? I mean, it is the Brooke Institute. Why would they want to do that?
Yeah, I guess. Okay, so I guess you're right. They're
Mhm.
just part of the colonial power and they have no interest in actual history.
I mean, it depends. I don't know who works there, but like, I mean, if they're anything like the people of our parents' generation, or even like our generation and older, like then it's likely that they might not have such a big interest in a serious decolonization of history.
Okay, yeah. Okay, point taken. I was being nice to them. I was hoping that they would come here for an interview.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, you can cut this out if it's gonna
No,
like.
I don't think they're ever going to. Like, we'll be like, "Hi, so why do you think you have a white savior complex?"
Yeah. Why would you? Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of books about Sarawak and like photographic books lying around in my at my dad's place, and I was reading the text next to the photos, and it was written by some woman in the 1960s or something like that, or 70s, and it was just so, you know, like just how many times can you use the word benevolent? How many times?
Oh, yeah.
You know, yeah.
I mean, and also that's the other thing. The claim of benevolence is so ridiculous because I guess it really depends on your the spectrum that you're talking from, because really they're just saying he's benevolent in comparison to the East India Company that's like really attempted some sort of genocide essentially. Like, when they saying it was like 30 million people killed. So James Brooks did not manage to kill
30 million people.
But he did raise
he killed a lot of
villages.
quote unquote pirates. Yeah.
He only killed pirates.
But everyone was a pirate.
Everyone he killed just happened to be a pirate. And he, like, you know, he burned villages down. It was like
he ordered the rape of Dayak women.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
mass rape.
It's not. So even though even in the press they talk about him ending slavery, etc., it's like it's just a marketing ploy.
Yeah, I mean, the British ended slavery. Everybody knows the British ended slavery. They never, like, did they start it? Well, they ended it, and that's what's important.
Yeah, exactly. They ended it, or they privatized it. I think that's how it goes. So,
such heroes, yeah.
Yeah, such heroes. Anyway, so yeah, so that was our takedown of the trailer. Do you have anything more to say about it?
I think this is like a real missed opportunity, especially if it was funded by the Sarawak Tourism Board. You know, like Sarawak is, and Borneo is, you know, has one of the most important and biodiverse rainforests. We have, you know, an incredible indigenous culture and tribes who take care of the forest and live in harmony with it, and live sustainably, and we have so much to learn from them and indigenous people who live in Borneo. And they're also undergoing a lot of challenges, like deforestation of their lands is really keeping them in trouble. So a movie about benevolent colonialism and headhunters was really kind of the last thing that we needed to fund, you know, like from the Sarawak side, you know, like there's so many projects that could have just gotten the go ahead for better funding. So shame on you, Sarawak Tourism Board, and shame on you, Brooks Institute. And shame on you, Hollywood producers, but I kind of expect this stuff from you. Yeah.
So I don't even think of them necessarily as Hollywood, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah. Like, shame on you, Hollywood tropes.
Hollywood tropes. And also some of the producers are from Hong Kong. So ironically too, James Brooks was really racist against Chinese people.
He was super racist. He hated Chinese people. It's amazing. What did he say? Wait, it was something like, we have horrible yellow skin. When we walk, we like flap our arms in some crazy ass way. And we have like horrible like slitty eyes and things like that. What were you saying?
He said something about like we look like we're lumps that were fashioned out of logs.
And we have horrible yellow skin. And what else? Like, I can't remember. He just like hates everything about Chinese. He was incredibly racist to Chinese people. So shame on you, Chinese producers who like glorified James Brooks.
It's a deeply ironic thing.
You got to pay the bills. Do you find like, I think also because like we live in the UK, so I think we get a bit more annoyed at how we get portrayed and how like white people think of us, because
we have to deal with them.
We have to deal with those attitudes when we go to work. Like, so, you know, like if we're portrayed as hardworking and useful and kind of timid or whatever, or as villainous, then it kind of translates to how people think of you at work. So, for example, if I show strength or any kind of aggression at work, like that's not on, you know, where that same level of aggression would be okay by coming from a white person. Like, I think coming from an Asian person, like you either just need to be really well behaved and really useful all the time. Not either, but that's your only option. There's no either.
Right.
So I find that I get very annoyed by these movie tropes. And I can just imagine sometimes in Asia that's not necessarily as annoying. Like, I do know, I have heard a lot of voices where they do get annoyed by the way that white people see them or the West see them, but it doesn't necessarily translate into their day-to-day.
Well, I don't know, because like I know at least in Singapore, you know, expats of a certain ethnicity are paid more than locals. You know, they actually go by ethnicity, like, or nationality, but really ethnicity. So that's like something that has a real life implication of this dehumanization of our own people. And this assumption that we're so stupid. I mean, that really comes through the whole trailer. Is like, these people are so stupid, they can't possibly govern themselves. You know, you have to come in there, and he's like, this is war. But like, hello, you're the only person with a cannon. Like, he asked for all this military weaponry from the British Empire, but no one else really had that. So like, who brought the war? The war, you know, it's like this ridiculous idea. And we would hope in 2021 that our own countries would not be complicit in these types of messaging. I think it is damaging. Like you said, maybe the average Malaysian doesn't have to deal with necessarily racist tropes like every single day. Maybe at the workplace, they might not necessarily have to deal with that, but we are dealing with it, I think, in terms of, well, just like part of being in the international community, like politically, you know, and how do we go forward, and who are we, etc. Like,
yeah, especially if you work in some kind of international company in Asia, in Hong Kong or Singapore, and you work in a bank and your boss is this white man from England and he shouts at you all the time and like expects you to stay later than him and all this kind of rubbish. Like, I think like Singaporeans and Hong Kong people are like very used to those tropes.
yeah, so they have to deal with it like on a day-to-day basis. And then like I think on a wider level too, it just sort of re-emphasizes this whole idea of like the justness of imperialism. And we are having that sort of, you know, American imperialism, but just like sort of socio-political implications, right? So I think we are affected by that on an even bigger scale, because there's so many people who might not know the history of, like the violent history of colonialism. And granted, Sarawak has a little bit of it's like he was more benevolent.
Oh my God, so many Malaysians think this though, because I mean, because that's who wrote the history, you know, like the British wrote the history. So yeah, my uncle, who's only like 15 years older than me or something, he was saying, oh, James Brooke, no, he wasn't part of the British Empire, he was actually anti-colonialist and protected Sarawak from being colonized by the British. And no.
Yeah, that was the funny thing, is that he often spoke up against colonization, but just in terms of they should institute me because I'm a better
colonizer.
A better colonizer. But he was just, but because he spoke up against it, people just take that part and sort of ran with that idea. Yeah, so never mind the fact that he had no right really to be there. That's the main point. But anyway, well, that was kind of a depressing note to end on.
Oh yeah.
But I'm excited to have a conversation with other Sarawakans and see what they think about it, and to watch. I'm not really that excited to watch the movie, but
no,
I feel like it should be done.
Really? Okay. I mean,
we don't have to. We can have them watch it. Like, but aren't we just terrible to do that?
Oh, give it a chance. You know, it's just a trailer. Like, you don't know what the real movie's like. The real movie could have, you know, it could have an indigenous main character. Could be entirely from like a local person's point of view, you know. And
anyone
like,
say that to you? I mean, the one thing that people did say was like, you know, you don't know what the movie is like. But I think I would say just that if you think that this trailer is going to sell the movie, like if you think that these racist tropes would sell a movie, that's really more of the concern here. It's like, why would you think that? And, you know, why now is the Sarawak Tourism Board associated with this trailer? Do you really think it's going to make people want to go to Sarawak? Maybe.
Because they'll just think that they'll be able to like be like a savior, and like everyone will just think they're amazing.
Maybe
come to Sarawak. Yeah, come to Sarawak and you will be a hero, and maybe even like be the king. And
maybe be the king. And you know, the jungle is beautiful but bloody. So you get both. It's like a thrilling ride. So yeah, that's good. Good time.
Yeah.
Okay, so any last thoughts?
Do better, and protect the rainforest and support indigenous people.
Yes, protect the rainforest, support indigenous people. There's like, just think we have so many fascinating stories about our actual real culture.
Yeah.
And what indigenous people are facing now as they transition. We're transitioning because of the rainforest being cut down and stuff. So it's like, it's a whole new world, and we should hear those stories.